Welcome, traveler. Tonight we drift into the last human ambassador. You're aboard the Halcyon Thread, though calling it a ship feels generous. More like a relic. Metal bones adrift in the outer dark, kept in one piece by grace, inertia, and a few tired microgravity stabilizers. Out the viewport, a soft curl of nebula, the sickle edge of a shattered moon, and stars too old to remember your name. But something does remember. Something called you here. The beacon activated precisely 438 days ago, but your arrival was anticipated. Much longer than that. The signal was encrypted in a format no living species but humans ever used. Standard Terran Diplomatic Beacon Protocol, Type 6. Like being summoned by a dusty pager from a world that forgot what pagers were. Good news. You're just here for the story, not the radiation. The airlock groans open, reluctant. Inside, the scent of ancient coolant, dried citrus, and ozone. Your boots land softly on the grated floor. The Halcyon Thread hums with the kind of silence that only comes from old ships, where every noise is the absence of something familiar. The lights flicker once, then hold. You've been expected. If you end up liking this quiet little corner of the galaxy, feel free to subscribe and leave a like, but only if it genuinely makes your evening better. Tell me where and when you're listening from. I always love seeing the spread across the stars and time zones. Now lower the lights, maybe let a soft fan hum in the background, and let's begin the drift into tonight's quiet orbit. You move down the primary corridor, your suit's ambient scanners pinging low-level power signatures, just enough juice left in the grid to keep the environmental controls breathing. The Halcyon Thread once served as a neutral meeting point, an off-world embassy for species too volatile to share a planet. Now, just a diplomatic husk, a rust-colored sign peels slightly off the bulkhead. Multi-species ambassadorial platform, retired. The lettering is in 5 languages, but only one you can still read. English. You're alone in that fluency now. Funny thing about being human in this part of the galaxy. People remember you, but only in the way historians remember discontinued food brands. Sweet, strange, and slightly suspicious. You reach the central. Command atrium. No power at the helm, but the auxiliary console lights up under your handprint. The system hesitates. Then it verifies your DNA against a database that no longer technically exists. Verified. Terran identity match. Envoy Classa panel slides open. Inside, a worn, leather-bound book. A real one. Paper, stitched spine, rough edges. The kind of thing no alien ever bothered with. Its cover bears a name. Ambassador Keen. Terran Union. Ambassador Keen. The last one, supposedly. That's what the record said. That they left here, alone. After the final summit broke down and Earth retracted, all envoys indefinitely. That was 207 years ago. You open the book. Inside, the ink is faded but legible, not typed, handwritten, an old habit maybe, or paranoia. The first entry reads, if someone's reading this, then Earth's finally done playing dead, or maybe, you're just here for the grave robbing. Either way, welcome, you've got some catching up to do. A strange warmth stirs in your chest. A voice in the dark, still waiting to be heard. You read on. They didn't want peace. Not really. They wanted containment. Polite extinction. But we made them nervous, didn't we? Always too stubborn. Too clever. Too improvisational. There's a pause in the ink. Then a smear. As if the ambassador hesitated or laughed. Anyway. If this book made it into your hands, it means the ship still runs. And if the ship still runs, maybe the door's still open. The logs continue, each entry hinting at something more fractured than history admits. A summit that should have united 7 species. A misunderstanding so deep, it rippled through space-time. And Keen, caught in the middle with nothing but words, wine, and the weight of being human. You close the book gently. No dust, no decay. The ship has been keeping it safe. Keeping it warm, a soft chime behind you. One of the corridor lights. Just activated, motion triggered. But you didn't move. Charming. You tuck the book into your pack and head toward the diplomatic wing. You're not just here to read, you're here to understand. And perhaps, just perhaps, you're not as alone as you thought. The corridor stretches out before you like the spine of a leviathan, its metal bones humming with old memory. Lights flicker on just ahead of your footsteps, always just ahead, as if the ship knows your route better than you do. You pass beneath etched plaques, species names, titles, alliances long dissolved or irrelevant now. Velkarian Mediators, Alcove, Orthi Psi Symposium Annex, Zelkari Hydrosphere Lounge. Each doorway you pass is sealed save one, the human wing. Its door doesn't slide open automatically. You have to push. It resists at first, then yields with a soft sigh, like the ship's exhaling. The air smells faintly of cinnamon and machine oil. A human combination, nostalgic and faintly ridiculous. The lights inside are lower, warmer. Someone adjusted them long ago to simulate a sunset. You can almost believe you're walking into a cozy earthside study, complete with leather chairs and a cracked vinyl record player in the corner. There's even a dried-out ficus in a ceramic pot. Dead, of course, but still somehow standing tall, like it's refusing to admit the party ended. In the center of the room is a table, and on the table an interface cube. You touch it, a soft trill. Then a hologram blinks into view, grainy at first, then sharpening into the image of Ambassador, keen, middle-aged, salt at the temples, loose tie hanging like a flag of surrender. He's smiling. Well, either Earth finally came back for me, or you're a scavenger with oddly specific clearance protocols. Either way. Hi. The projection. Paces slightly, hands in pockets. This isn't a log exactly, not a diary, more like a breadcrumb trail. Some things I couldn't write in the book, some things weren't safe on paper. He pauses and looks directly at you, or at least the recording does. They never forgave us for the joke. You blink. Wait. What? The image continues. It was the Velkarin who broke first, you know them. Spindle-limbed, six eyes, huge sense of hierarchy. The summit had gone 14 days without progress. Tension through the roof. I cracked a joke about Terran cuisine. Something about pineapple on pizza being a war crime. Got a laugh from the Orthi delegation. Didn't sit well with the Velkarin, prime consul. Called it an act of cultural insubordination. Next thing you know, they're accusing Earth of intentional destabilization. Negotiations collapsed within 6 hours. The projection's smile fades. It wasn't the joke, of course. That's just what lit the match. Truth is, they never knew what to do with us, with our messiness, our contradictions, our humor. He stops pacing. But I think someone did. The feed cuts abruptly. The cube powers down. You sit back. The room seems to lean with you as if acknowledging the weight of that strange small revelation. A joke? That's what broke a galactic peace summit? Of course, it's never just the joke. It's what it represents. Outside, you hear a low creak. Through the hull, a reminder of old metal expanding in cold vacuum. Or something else brushing against the ship. You move deeper into the chamber. A back wall slides open with a hiss, revealing a narrow hallway that isn't on the schematic. It curves downward, dimly lit, toward the lower decks. You follow it. The walls change. Less Terran design now, more neutral alloy embedded with multicolored filaments. This is the diplomatic spine where species met in shared spaces. No culture's iconography dominates. Everything here was built to be equally familiar and equally alien. You reach a round chamber at the bottom. A dozen chairs circle a central plinth. 11 are clearly alien. 1 is human. Soft padding, adjustable height, a side slot for snacks even. Very on-brand. The human chair is empty. The others are occupied. Holograms. Faint, repeating loops. Not recordings exactly. More like simulations left running. You step closer and realize these are the auto-presence protocols. When the species, Left, their diplomatic avatars were set to repeat basic pleasantries indefinitely. Peace through parity, says the Orthy avatar, nodding. Disagreement is merely pre-cooperation, chimes the Zalkari, like a water harp. The Cyrethi delegate just stares. It doesn't blink. It's not even shaped like a face, just a shifting field of geometric light. It speaks, once, and only once. Human presence confirmed, awaiting protocol resumption. You freeze. The other holograms pause. The Cyrethi field shimmers brighter. 207 years elapsed. 136 diplomatic infractions unresolved. Human intervention required. And then, would you like to resume summit? There's a moment where you consider laughing. Or backing away slowly. But something in the ship, no in you, keeps your feet rooted. Sure, you say. The room brightens. The plinth pulses once. Somewhere above, systems long dormant come back online. Inertial stabilizers hum. Gravity subtly shifts. You realize something with cold clarity. This ship was never meant to drift, it was meant to wait. A diplomatic barge with no diplomats, no audience, just protocol, looping, endlessly. And now, you. The chamber is alive now. Well, alive is a generous term for what's happening. It's more like watching an abandoned mall turn its lights back on after a few centuries. Some flicker. Some fail. Others blaze with unsettling cheer, as if nothing ever changed. The diplomatic core hums louder, and the avatars shift from passive presence to attention. One by one, they turn toward you. Ambassador Keen? Asks the Orthy, tilting a head that's more stalk than skull. You clear your throat. Not exactly. Successor, then, says the Velkarin. This one looks like a praying mantis carved from sapphire and bad decisions. Protocol accepts. Hereditary occupation in crisis. That's not comforting. Still, you nod. Because denying it might shut the whole thing down. And because, in a way, it's true. You're not here to fill Keen's shoes. You're here to figure out why. They were never filled again. The Cyrethi's light field rotates slowly, almost in contemplation. Summit resumed. Agenda review initializing. The center plinth pulses again and the chamber shifts. The seats rearrange themselves, subtly, almost respectfully, toward the middle. A holographic interface rises from the floor, cycling through. Files too fast for your eyes to catch. Then it stops. Summit agenda. Item 003. Resolution of Terran cultural infraction. Status: incomplete. Stalemate. Duration: 207 years, 3 months, 2 days. You blink. This again? Hisses the Zalkari delegate, its voice like dripping water and sarcasm. It was a culinary idiom. We've wasted centuries on this. It was a veiled threat, the Velkarin counters. Humans use humor to mask dominance displays. This is known. The Orthy adjusts their internal light pattern, signifying diplomatic exhaustion. This is also known. Humans self-sabotage with sarcasm. It is not always strategic. You interject gently, raising a hand. Can we back up? What exactly are you all still arguing about? The avatars go still. Even the Cyrethi dims slightly. Then, the Orthy sighs, a melodic tone that seems genetically engineered to make you feel gently incompetent. Ambassador Keen introduced humor as a mediation tool. It worked, for a moment. Then it didn't. The Velkarin took offense. The Cyrethi filed an ambiguity injunction. The Zalkarian began composing a treaty in interpretive dance, which is still pending, the Zalkari adds pointedly. This room, this forum, was supposed to be neutral ground. The Hall of Tongues, it was once called. A place where no single culture dominated, where wars cooled down in the glow of soft lighting and shared meals. But now it's a frozen scene of unresolved tension, a diplomatic ghost story. And someone's been here recently. You notice it when you move toward the Terran chair again. A scuff mark on the floor. A faint residue of body heat, according to your suit's scanner. And crumbs. Actual crumbs. You crouch. Pull one up to your visor. Pineapple. You swear softly. Not at the fruit, but at the implications. Someone else triggered this sequence before you. Recently. The avatars continue debating. The same loop, the same complaints. They don't even notice your sudden silence. You rise slowly, eyes scanning the chamber again. Where's the ship's AI? You ask. The Cyrethi pulses. Present. I mean, where's the interface? Who's running this? The light shifts. A seam opens in the floor. You descend instinctively because apparently that's the kind of human you are. Someone who follows glowing cracks in ancient alien spaceships. You emerge in what must have been the operations core once. Now it's a garden of silence. Every wall is covered in screens, dark and cracked. Thick vines, synthetic bio-looped cables braided to simulate growth, hang from the ceiling. They sway slightly, despite the still air. And in the center, a chair. The same model as Keen's, facing a massive powered-down screen. A mug sits on the floor beside it. Empty, Terran make. A slogan still faint on the side. Peace through pizza. Of course, you step forward and touch the central console. HFY comes to life in a breath. Lines of data cascade. You catch flashes of recent commands. One stands out. Replay. Visitor interaction log. 12 days ago, you select it. The screen flickers. Static. Then a blurry image. A human face, maybe. Shadowed. Hooded. Sitting in the chair. Speaking softly. I'm not here to fix it, just to see if it still breathes. A pause. They said we broke the galaxy with a laugh. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's the only thing we did right. Another pause. Then, with a voice that sounds like Keen's, but younger. Tell them I was here. The screen cuts. You exhale. There's been another human, very recently. Maybe a descendant. Maybe someone pretending. Maybe someone who never left. The Cyrethi's voice crackles through a speaker behind you. Shall we resume voting on cultural censure protocols? You don't answer. Not yet. Because now there's a bigger question than what happened 207 years ago. The real question is, why didn't humanity come back? And who decided they finally should? You return to the Hall of Tongues, the strange scent of synthetic vines and Terran coffee still clinging to your senses. The avatars haven't noticed your detour. Or maybe they have, and simply consider it unimportant. After all, humans wander. It's in the records. The Valkyrian is mid-sentence when you step back into the ring. Something about symbolic disrespect manifesting through food pairings. You hold up a hand. Pause proceedings, you say, channeling a voice you didn't know you had. The avatars freeze. Obedient but slightly perturbed. You're not Keen, not officially, but you're wearing the DNA, the clearance, and now the tone of someone who sounds like they belong here. You walk toward the human chair again, and this time you sit. The seat adjusts automatically, sighs softly under your weight. It's the only warm surface in the room. That's unsettling. The Cyrethi responds first. Human representative assumes post. Protocol updated. Quorum restored. The words fall into place like a well-oiled mechanism, but something beneath them hums with anticipation. You glance at the center plinth, still glowing, still tracking your every move, and now awaiting something more than just presence. Dialogue. But you're not ready for diplomacy just yet. Before we continue the summit, you say carefully, I want to address the issue of the chair. The avatars blink, or shimmer, or blink shimmer, depending on their biology. The human seat has remained unclaimed for 2 centuries, you continue. And yet it's been maintained, preserved, temperature calibrated. That's not just protocol. That's expectation. The Orthi leans forward, their upper segments flickering in shades of contemplative blue. You are implying an intentional delay, a stall for humanity's re-entry. I'm implying, you say slowly, that this ship didn't just wait, it knew it would be waiting. Another pause. Then the Velkaran clicks once, a harsh sound that probably means amusement. Predictive bias. It is common among dying species. You smile, calmly, politely, in the way humans do when they're planning a verbal counterstrike. Maybe. Or maybe someone built this place to keep our seat warm, because they believed we'd matter again. That gets a reaction. The Zalkari emits a melodic wheeze that might be a laugh. The Serethi simply shimmers brighter, like a data stream spiking. You tap a nearby control, and the chamber dims slightly. You all kept running protocols. You held our place in the quorum. You argued over a fruit topping for 200 years, but no one sealed the human wing. No one deleted our records. Why? The avatars don't answer. You let the silence hang. Because you didn't know what we'd do next. And the one thing that terrifies every civilized species in this galaxy, you let your eyes scan each delegate, is not knowing what the humans will do next. This time the Serethi speaks, its voice like breaking crystal. You mistake contingency for reverence. Maybe, you say. Or maybe Keen left, more behind than jokes. You open the interface cube again, activating a secondary file hidden in its lower layers. A small hologram appears. It's Keen again, but different, not the performative diplomat. This version is tired, blinking against low light, maybe a few drinks deep. If you're watching this, it means you sat in the chair. Good. Maybe that means you're ready. He glances off screen, rubs his face. They think the joke broke it. It didn't. The summit was already collapsing under its own contradictions. The Velkarin wanted tribute. The Zalkari wanted a music treaty. The Serethi wanted, I still don't know. I think they just wanted to observe how we fail. But I saw something. In the waiting. In the silence after. The chair wasn't empty. Not really. It held the weight of everything we almost did right. Keen leans forward. And if you're back now, it means maybe someone, somewhere, still believes we can try again. The message ends. The chamber is quiet. Even the flickering lights seem subdued. You let the moment settle. Then, let's revisit Agenda Item 003, but this time we move past it. The Zalkari twitches. Override the offense? No, acknowledge it. But let's upgrade the framework. Let's define cultural satire as a negotiation mechanism. Call it what it is, emotional diplomacy. The Orthi considers this. That would require redefining empathy thresholds. So redefine them, you say. You've had 2 centuries. The Velkarin glares, though their glares involve mandibles and 3 eyelids. And the cost? You smile. The cost is admitting that unpredictability is not a flaw. It's a contribution. The Serethi's field pulses like a heart. Proposal. Accepted. Reclassification underway. Humor categorized as Tier 1 emotional catalyst. You exhale. Not because you've won, but because, for the first time, you're speaking their language your way. Something shifts. The plinth dims. A new agenda item begins to queue, but before you can read it, a whisper crackles through the private channel in your chair. A voice not from the avatars, not from the ship. A voice that says, "They're watching. They always were. Get to the engine room." The message cuts. You don't recognize the voice, but it knows you're here, which means your chair isn't the only thing being warmed. You don't acknowledge the voice out loud. That would break protocol and possibly sanity. Instead, you tap gently on the edge of your chair, an old Terran habit, masking the tension in your posture. Beneath the table, your fingers slip into the manual interface channel, switching your visor feed into passive scan mode. There it is, a signal ping, low frequency, embedded in the chair itself. Broadcasting on a spectrum humans used during the earliest deep space missions, before the official Terran Union even existed. It shouldn't still be operational, but like so many things on this ship, it shouldn't be, yet is. You rise smoothly. Delegates, you say. I'll submit the updated humor protocol proposal for final review. In the meantime, I request recess. 5 Earth minutes. The Orthi nods solemnly. The Zalkari begins playing what you think is recess music. Several 100 whispery flutes all playing different notes. The Serethi emits a single rotating tone that translates roughly to pending. You exit the Hall of Tongues quickly, following your HUD's faint arrow toward the engine room. The corridor ahead of you curls like a fossilized shell, full of low thuds and quiet breathing machinery. The kind of sound that makes you feel watched, even if it's just the hull settling, which, of course, it isn't. The door to the subdeck is sealed, not electronically, but with an old-fashioned manual lever. You grunt as you crank it, the metal resisting you like a limb unused to movement. It clicks open, you step inside. The engine room is not what you expected. Instead of tangled coils and cooling conduits, you find something living. Metal vines cover the walls here too, but deeper, thicker, pulsing with faint bioluminescence. They twist through the bulkheads like veins. In the center of the room is a vertical pod, maybe 3 meters tall, shaped like a tear-held, midfall. Not Terran, not anything you recognize. It's breathing. Your suit registers heat, life signs, faint but stable. Then a voice, this time not through your visor, just air and sound. You're later than I thought. You turn. A woman stands at the far end of the chamber, leaning against a console that shouldn't have power. She's dressed in an old Terran envoy uniform, navy blue with the faded insignia of the Union stitched crookedly across the shoulder. The kind they stopped issuing a century ago. And her face, it's familiar, too familiar. You saw it in Keen's holograms. But this isn't him. Are you? I'm not Keen, she interrupts, smirking. But I've got a few of his neurons. And a lot of his bad decisions. You stare. She taps the console beside her. Cloning was never the right word, nor was resurrection. I'm a failsafe. A what? She steps toward the breathing pod. When Keen realized the summit was going to collapse, he initiated Protocol L7. It wasn't in the books, it wasn't legal. But it was very, very human. She places a hand on the pod. He encoded his memories, not just logs, but emotions, flashes, impressions, personality echoes, then buried them in the ship's core, hoping someday someone would come looking. You glance around. You're the Echo? Version 6. The others didn't take. You swallow. And what's your role? She smiles, and for a second, she looks exactly like someone you would have followed into a peace summit or a bar fight. To tell you what they never wanted to say out loud, this ship was never neutral. It was never designed for peace. You feel the chill in her words before your brain catches up. It was a test? It was a mirror, she replies. Built to reflect what each species feared most about the others. That's why it failed. Not because of the joke, but because it was always supposed to. You feel your knees go light. And humanity? We scared them the most, she says softly, because we didn't fit the model. We weren't conquerors, weren't saints, we didn't behave like anything they could predict. She looks at you, and now you're here, which means the mirror's active again. The pod beside her hisses slightly. The vines retract. A soft glow spreads across the walls, revealing etched symbols, maps, faces, names, all Terran. Keen left a message for you, she says. You raise an eyebrow. She points toward the console. It's not a recording, you'll see. You approach the screen. Touch it. Light envelops your vision. Not data, memory. You see a conference room full of shouting delegates. Keen standing alone at the center, laughing, tired, unafraid. Then the laughter stops. So does time. Then his voice. Quiet, personal, spoken only to you. If you're here, then I failed just well enough. Maybe you can do what I couldn't. Not fix it. Just keep the door cracked open. Long enough for someone else to knock. The light fades. You're back in the engine room. The woman, Keen's Echo, has already turned away. They're going to ask you to decide soon, she says. Vote, rule, confirm humanity's position in the quorum. You nod. But before you do, she continues, ask yourself something. Wait, are you going to speak for humanity? Or be it? You don't have an answer yet. But something in your pulse, the rhythm of Earth, still beating beneath your skin, tells you you're closer than you think. You climb the winding corridor back to the Hall of Tongues. Each footstep feels heavier now, not with gravity but with something older, deeper. The kind of weight you carry when you're no longer walking for yourself. When you've just heard that everything you believed had a purpose and was, in fact, a cleverly disguised psychological experiment wrapped in good intentions and diplomacy-grade upholstery. The delegates are still in session when you return. The Orthy is discussing empathy, recalibration thresholds. The Zalkari is composing a new clause about culturally ambiguous humor, accompanied by slow, squelching percussion. The Velkarin is doing what the Velkarin always do, waiting for someone to slip up. The Cyrethi avatar is still just light. Still, just watching. You sit, and the moment you do, the avatars fall silent again. Summit resuming. The Cyrethi intones. Pending item. Human reinstatement. Vote required. You glance at the console. There it is in glowing script. Item 007. Species 08A, Terran. Reinstatement to active diplomatic status. Preconditions. Completion of censure review. Confirmation of sentient continuity. Requires unanimous consent. You already know what this means. They're going to make you argue for your own existence. And worse, you have to do it their way. You lean forward, locking eyes with no one and everyone at once. I'd like to begin by speaking to continuity. The Orthy gestures softly, granting you the floor. You inhale. There is a myth among humans, you begin, about a creature called the Theseus ship. If every part of a ship is replaced, piece by piece, is it still the same ship? And if memories are lost, rewritten, echoed through time, are we still the same people? You let the words settle before continuing. Ambassador Keen's body is gone. Earth pulled its envoys. Our systems shut down, but you touch your chest lightly. We left echoes. And we returned. Maybe not on time, maybe not as expected, but we are still here. The Cyrethi pulses slowly, then, unexpectedly, it responds. Continuity established. Temporal lag acknowledged. Emotional resonance sufficient. You blink. You're agreeing? Your memory retention ratio exceeds expected decay. Your unpredictability remains intact. Parameters are met. The Velkarin hisses. Unpredictability is not a virtue. You smile. It is when predictability failed for 2 centuries. The Velkarin makes a sound like someone grinding teeth made of glass. Then slowly the vote display updates. Orthy. Yes Zalkari. Yes Cyrethi. Yes Velkarin. Pending you exhale. One holdout. Of course it's them. The Velkarin delegate stands. Not physically. But the avatar's posture straightens into something rigid and ritualistic. We require clarification. We require a reason. Not a metaphor, not a joke. Not another parable about pizza. You think. Fast. Then raise your hand. Do you know why humans blink? You ask. The avatars tilt or shimmer, depending on what their species does when puzzled. It's not just about moisture. It's about resetting. A blink is a microsecond pause. A soft reboot. It allows the brain to realign, reevaluate. You lean in. When Earth withdrew, the galaxy assumed we'd vanished. But we were just blinking. Silence. Then, a soft chime. Velkarin. Yes, the vote completes. Terran diplomatic status reinstated Delegate 08A. Confirmata subtle shift moves through the hall. Not physical, not even sound. Just recognition. A weight lifted. A line redrawn. You've been invited back to the table. But before relief can settle in, the Cyrethi's field pulses again, this time in an unfamiliar frequency. Further clarification required. You frown. Clarification of what? Purpose. The lights dim. A new hologram rises above the table, a swirling field of images. War, peace, laughter, extinction events, marriage vows, explosions, quiet gardens. Human moments. All of them. Galactic records still debate whether humanity contributes stability or entropy. That's when it hits you. This isn't about forgiveness. It's about understanding. They reinstated your position, but now they want to define you, and you can't let them. So you rise, slowly. The chair creaks under your absence. Your voice is quiet, but clear. You want a summary of humanity? The Sarithi field swells, awaiting your answer. So you give it to them. We are the species that made gods out of stars and stories out of silence. We burn bridges and then invent boats. We write poetry during wars and start revolutions over tea. We cry at sunsets. We laugh at funerals. We carry entire worlds inside our heads and somehow still get lost in parking lots. You pause. We are contradiction. And that's not a flaw, it's a feature. The avatars say nothing, but something in the chamber feels warmer. The Sirethi's light dims. Then, softly. Evaluation deferred. Observation to continue. It's not a verdict. It's an invitation, and for now that's enough. The Hall of Tongues dims to a soft indigo. The vote is done. The tension has bled from the room, not vanished but sublimated, like dry ice in warm air. You sit again, slower this time. Your heart's still pacing like it hasn't gotten the memo. The delegates begin to file out of their active loops. One by one, the holograms dim or blink to stand by. The Zalkari lets out a sound like 1,000 bubbles popping in sequence. Approval, you think. The Orthi gives a final flicker of light, a diplomatic nod. The Velkarin simply vanishes. No goodbye. No ceremony. Only the Sarithi remains. You watch the glowing geometries of its form undulate in silence. Eventually, you ask, will you be staying? I never left. And it's true. The Sarithi presence never powered down, never closed its file. It has been observing for over 2 centuries without pause, like a lighthouse with no harbor to signal. You never tried to stop the others from leaving. There was no value in resistance, but you waited. Waiting is the purest form of curiosity. You smirk. Some galactic historians still argue whether your kind is even conscious in the traditional sense. Some galactic historians mistake silence for absence. Fair point. You lean back in the human chair, letting your eyes travel the ring one more time. It feels different now. You're not just sitting in someone else's place. You're part of the structure again. The quorum has been updated. The hall knows your name, or at least it knows your signature. And then something strange happens. The plinth in the center of the chamber pulses one more time, and a slot opens that you've never seen before. From within it, a single item rises, a small, black cube. Not data, not tech. It's obsidian, polished, unmarked, perfectly smooth on every surface. You approach it slowly, half expecting it to vaporize your fingerprints. But it doesn't. It's cool to the touch. Heavy, but not inert. It feels dense with meaning, like a metaphor waiting to be activated. What is this? You ask. The Sarithi responds without hesitation. A vote that was never cast. You freeze. Ambassador Keen was given the right to place one final proposal. He declined. Why? Unknown. The vote was his alone, non-transferable, but the object was left in trust. It will remain until humanity produces a successor. I'm that successor now. No, says the Sarithi. You are the continuation. A successor chooses. A continuation endures. You stare at the cube. You could open it. You want to open it. But you don't. Not yet. Instead, you tuck it into your pack. Because the truth is, humanity's greatest skill has never been certainty. It's waiting. For the right moment. For the next attempt. For the time the joke lands just right. You nod once to the Cerethi, whose form begins to dim. The hall follows suit. The quorum session has ended. But your mission hasn't. Back in the corridor, the ship feels subtly brighter. Systems humming, walls recalibrating. Your DNA, it seems, has triggered a cascade. You can feel the halcyon thread stretching its limbs for the first time in 2 centuries. Your comm crackles. A voice. Hers. Good work, Diplomat. You grin. That's generous. Don't get smug. The quorum was the warm-up. You stop walking. What does that mean? Come to the memory vault. Memory vault? You scan for it. Nothing on the schematics. But your visor pings a new access door near the observatory level, hidden until now. Keen's echo, or whatever she really is, has unlocked another layer. On my way, you whisper. Bring the cube. You look down at it, black and silent, in your hand. You're not sure if you're holding history, or a question no one's ready to answer. Either way, it's yours now. The memory vault is not where you expect it. It's located just past the observatory level. A dome of reinforced crystal meant for star watching, treaty celebrations, and quiet late-night existential crises. The view alone is enough to make philosophers weep, an open canvas of stars twisted by the ship's motion, streaked with the faint auroras of the outer dust cloud. But the vault? It hides in plain sight beneath the observer's bench, a smooth, flat surface that only opens when it recognizes your presence. When it does, the bench splits like the jaws of a secret, and a staircase descends into darkness. Of course it does. You descend without hesitation, because at this point you've committed to this rabbit hole and you might as well see where it ends. The black cube in your pocket feels warmer now. Not hot, not dangerous, just aware. The vault is quiet. Too quiet. The walls are padded not for sound but memory insulation. No holograms here, no blinking lights. Just rows of alcoves carved into stone metal, each with a seated figure. You stop. There are people here. No, statues. But not sculpted. These are memory casts. You've read about them in theory. Pre-silicon. Backups of entire neural profiles encoded into hardened frame husks. Not just data, but personality. Essence. There are 12 in total, each one humanoid, each one Terran. Your heart skips a beat. Keen is here, or rather, a perfect cast of him, seated with eyes closed, hands resting on his knees. Others too. Names you recognize from dusty annexes of the diplomatic archives. Ambassadors who vanished. Envoys who were lost in transition. You always assumed those were metaphors. They weren't. You hear a door hiss open behind you. She enters. Version 6. Keen's echo, still wearing that same lopsided grin. Welcome to the vault, she says. The part nobody knew existed. You gesture around, half whispering. These are all copies, she says. Failsafes. Fragments of human diplomacy stored before it collapsed. You approach one, the ambassador of the Martian Republic. You remember her speeches. Elegant, poetic, utterly persuasive. Why weren't they used? You ask. They were wrong. Wrong how? She shrugs. Too loyal, too cold, too much earth and not enough human. She steps to a panel on the wall. With a flick of her fingers, a terminal lights up, and holographic representations of each cast begin to shimmer in the space above them. Not active, just frozen frames. Their last memories, their final expressions. Keen's hologram, notably, is smiling. You said earlier, you recall, that this ship wasn't neutral. It was a mirror. It still is. She turns toward you. The smirk fades. And now the mirror's asking you a question. She gestures to the back of the room. A 13th alcove empty, waiting. For me? No, she says, eyes narrowing. For whatever part of humanity you bring with you. The part that isn't archived. The part that still breathes. You look at the seat. A whisper hums across the room. Maybe the ship's air circulation. Maybe memory itself. What happens if I sit? Then we begin recording. You hesitate. This wasn't the mission. You were supposed to read, observe, maybe negotiate. You weren't supposed to become part of the archive, but then again, humanity never was good at following the mission brief. You walk slowly to the empty alcove, stand before it. The seat shifts slightly to accommodate your height. Behind you, she speaks softly. You don't have to do this. You nod. But if I don't, this part of the story disappears. Or changes, she offers. Same difference. You sit. The back of the alcove comes alive with faint light. No wires, no helmets. Just a soft pulse against your spine. You feel it touch your memories. Not invasive, just curious. Like fingers tracing the dust on old books. Your voice echoes inside your own mind. My name is... But it doesn't ask for a name. It asks for a moment that defines what it meant to be human. You close your eyes. You remember Earth. Not the cities or the chaos. Not the politics. You remember a rooftop, a thunderstorm, and someone you loved handing you a cup of instant coffee and saying nothing at all. Because sometimes silence is the conversation. The vault hums in response. You open your eyes. The cast begins to form, not just your body but your echo. Not a clone, not a duplicate, a witness. You've made your imprint, she says quietly. You rise. The cast remains seated, eyes closed, silent, enduring. Behind you, the echo tilts her head. So, now what? You pull out the cube, and for the first time it pulses. A signal lights up on the far wall. Destination, unknown. Coordinates, hidden directive. Open when ready, you look at her. Looks like the galaxy's got one more question for us. She grins. And this time, it looks less like keen and more like you. The ship realigns itself. You don't see it happen, but you feel it. A low subsonic shift in the floor beneath your boots. The way a dream rearranges itself just before waking. The corridors behind you no longer lead where they once did, and gravity feels suggestive rather than absolute. She, Keen's echo, walks beside you now as you head back toward the main axis. Neither of you speaks for a moment. The cube in your hand still pulses faintly, as if syncing with your breath. You? No, she finally says. No one's sure if this ship was originally built by humans. You glance at her. Come again? Records say it was a Terran project. Blueprints filed by the Union. But there are inconsistencies. You pause at a bulkhead that now opens before you reach it, like a butler learning your walk. What kind? The kind you don't notice until you've lived here long enough to feel when the walls are listening. You step into what was once the intercultural lounge. It's changed. The wide-paneled windows now look out into deep subspace, a region that should not be visible unless the ship is in FTL drift. Which it's not. Is the ship moving? You ask. She taps the wall. It flickers. Not metal, not polymer, not any substance you've scanned before. The ship's always been moving, just not always in ways you'd notice. You turn to her. So who built it? She smiles faintly. That's the million-credit question, isn't it? You both walk in silence again, past dormant hollow tables and chairs molded for bodies that no longer breathe. The quiet feels thicker, now not absence but anticipation. You pass a mural you hadn't seen before. Etched into the metal by hand, it seems. A Terran child, reaching up to touch a series of strange symbols. It's not art, not quite. More like a memory, trying to teach itself. You pause. What's this? She studies it, squinting slightly. That was added by someone before my time. Version 4, maybe. We think it's a fragment of First Contact. Some kind of pre-language. Not Terran, not Serethi either. The child's expression is serene. Not in awe, not afraid, just curious. You run your fingers lightly across the metal. It's warm. Maybe that's the secret, you say. Curiosity didn't kill the human. It defined us. Behind you, she lets out a quiet breath. I like that. Want me to engrave it on your data slab when the galaxy tries to vaporize you for real? You smirk. Use a good font. You reach the communications deck. It was supposed to be non-functional, a ceremonial node, a relic. But as you step in, the systems hum awake. Displays flicker on. A low chime rolls through the room. You're not alone. Floating above the central console is a projection of a being you don't recognize. Tall, translucent, not solid, not gas. It wears no armor, no clothing, no insignia, just a shape made of shifting colors and rhythm like a slow aurora trapped in humanoid form. It speaks, but not in sound, not in words, in memory. Suddenly you're not you. You're Keen again. During his first summit, then a child on Luna base during gravity recalibration drills, then a pilot watching Earth shrink into a pinpoint, then a voice asking, "Do you still believe in first contact?" The projection steadies, and a phrase forms in your mind, crisp and deliberate. You called. We answered. Your jaw tightens. Who are you? We are the mirror behind the mirror. You look to her. She's gone pale. For the first time, unsure. This wasn't part of the program, she whispers. It was never a program. It was an invitation. The projection pulses once. You have reawakened the quorum, realigned the seat, chosen continuity. Now you must choose direction. You glance at the console. New coordinates are appearing. Not star maps, probabilities, branching futures. Scenarios calculated at a depth no human math could reach. Some futures are dark, some are bright. Most are uncertain. What happens if I choose wrong? You ask quietly. There is no wrong, only echo and consequence. The cube in your hand flares once, then goes still. You set it gently into the console. It sinks, clicks. The ship exhales, and the walls begin to sing, not music, not words, just the sound of data and memory unfurling. 1,000 voices, human and otherwise, blending into something that feels like time, whispering in all directions at once. Guess that's our cue, she murmurs. You look up. The projection is gone. But something else is here now. A path forward, and, for the first time, it doesn't look like a corridor, it looks like a story, and it's waiting for you to write the next line. You stand at the edge of the projection chamber, unsure whether what you just witnessed was first contact, last contact, or something weirder in between. The cube is gone, absorbed into the console like a seed planted in digital soil, and now the halcyon thread hums with renewed purpose. Systems long dormant are syncing, whispering to each other in forgotten protocols. A direction has been chosen. Or maybe you were. She, Keen's echo, is leaning against the console, arms crossed, expression unreadable. You just said yes to something with no definition. You glance at her. So did Keen. Yeah, but he didn't live long enough to regret it. You give a crooked smile. And I just might? No, she replies. You'll live long enough to realize regret and purpose are often the same thing, at least in human diplomacy. That's not comforting. You step out of the chamber, and the corridor greets you with light. Not fluorescent, not artificial. This light is golden like sunrise on Earth, or at least how it looked in the filtered memories archived in your neural pocket. How is this possible? You murmur. The ship's reacting to you now, she says. To your choices. You glance over your shoulder. It's learning. It always was. The problem was it had no teacher. You walk in silence through a hallway that's slowly transforming with every step. Panels smooth out. Interfaces flicker to life. The doors begin labeling themselves in your native language. One briefly flashes. Coffee? You chuckle. That's a little on the nose. Be glad it didn't offer something stronger. Version 2 once crashed the hydroponics module by asking for whiskey. The two of you reach the archive vault, which now glows with soft white light. Inside, the chairs are gone, the statues, even your EchoCast, What happened? You ask. They're uploading, she says, to something larger. You're about to ask what that something is, when a soft chime interrupts. The main console lights up with a message. Query, are you ready to answer? You freeze. Answer what? She shrugs. The big one, I'd wager. You step closer. The console splits open, not like machinery but like paper. A book folding itself open. Inside is not a screen, it's a question, etched in mirrored metal, glowing faintly from within. What does it mean to be human? You stare. No timer. No countdown. Just a silent request from something far older than any quorum, any treaty, any war or peace. It waits. And so do you. She watches you for a moment. Then softly says, there's no right answer, you know, just the one you give. You place both palms on the metal, not out of ritual but necessity. You breathe, then you speak. It means contradiction, you say. The console absorbs the words. Light spreads. It means laughter at the wrong moment. Tears at the right one. It means building a ship out of nothing and still doubting if you belong on it. Another pulse. A warmth against your skin. It means failing. Getting up. Failing again. Still showing up to the meeting. She exhales quietly beside you. It means being the story that nobody expects, but everyone remembers. The light fades. The words are gone, but they were heard. The console closes, sealing the answer into something you can't see, but feel. The ship slows, or maybe it was never moving in the way you thought. You glance out a viewport and see nothing but stars, and a signal blinking at the edge of vision. A reply. Understood, initiating return signal. You blink. Return? She nods. Earth. You step back. That wasn't supposed to be possible. The relay station's dead. Disconnected? Sure. She gestures around. So we're using something older. You don't ask how. You just wait. And then a ripple in the air, a shimmer, a sound, not heard, but remembered, like a lullaby hummed to you as a child by someone whose face you never quite saw. Then a voice. We wondered when you'd call. You stagger. That's... Yes, she says, smiling softly. That's them. Earth, or what's left of it, or what grew from it, and they've been listening all along. The voice is faint but certain. It doesn't come through speakers or translators or cables. It arrives like a memory suddenly remembered, like the name of a childhood friend, or the smell of rain on sun-baked stone. We wondered when you'd call. And just like that, you're no longer alone in the dark. She, Keen's echo, sits beside you on the now living console bench, arms folded, eyes fixed on the glow of the reply. Her expression shifts between awe and something harder to place, regret, hope. You hear that? You whisper. I feel it, she murmurs. The ship responds in kind. Panels open, archive lights pulse. A pulse signal begins threading outward, not through space, but something beneath it. Subspace, metaspace, narrative space, whatever layer. Humanity embedded its long-range protocol into when science got too poetic for math. You stare at the data stream. Phrases, snippets, voices long buried, laughter caught in crystal. This is Colony Theta 4. Earthlink still active, awaiting update. This is IO Relay Station, rebooting channel. This is Luna government in exile. Is this real? More voices than you thought possible. Some crackling with age, some calm, some broken, some stunned into a whisper, but all human. They never left. They just stopped answering. Because they thought the galaxy had moved on, and maybe it had. But now they know. Your words made it back. You feel the tears rise, not from grief, not from joy, just from recognition. She lays a hand on your shoulder. Her voice is quiet. Welcome home, Diplomat. You turn to her. You knew this was possible? I suspected. But I didn't believe until now. The ship's structure shifts again. Not in shape, but in orientation. You're moving now. Properly. With intent. The stars realign around your field of view, forming a corridor of light, a route, a return path, but not toward Earth. From Earth. Because something's coming. Not a ship. Not a fleet, a signal, and it's laced with something new, something impossible. They've been watching too. You read the message streaming in now. Text only. To any surviving Terran envoys, the archives remain. The embassies are buried, but not forgotten. We await your representative. Is this you? You blink. Then you reply, yes. The signal pauses. Then replies, good. Because we need your help. Your blood goes cold. She sees your expression shift. What is it? She asks. You turn the screen to her. She reads the words. Her face darkens. The message continues. They found us again. The species that never blink, the Velkarin. But they were in the quorum. They voted yes. She reads aloud, barely above a whisper. Something's wrong. The screen updates again. A video feed now, grainy, lagging, an outpost, scorched, torn banners, and in the background, rising behind a fractured dome, the unmistakable shimmer of Velkarin ships. But not ambassadors, war forms. This doesn't make sense, you murmur. They agreed to the treaty update. They reinstated humanity. She shakes her head. That quorum was old, stale. What you reactivated may not match the current political state of their empire. So we were speaking to a ghost council? No, she says. You were speaking to an honest version, one that the current regime abandoned. The screen crackles. Another message blinks through. They don't know we've made contact with the thread. We need evacuation or leverage. Another ping. Or a reason for them to stop. You swallow, because you might be that reason. Not as a soldier, not as a savior, but as a symbol. The last human ambassador speaking not just for Earth, but for the promise that peace wasn't dead. Just hibernating. You look to her. I need to go, you say. She nods. I figured. And you? She hesitates. I'm a ghost, a failsafe. I don't belong in the future. But then her eyes narrow. Unless you bring me with you. You smile. Fine, but you're not allowed to quote Keane every 5 minutes. She smirks. Deal. You stand together on the bridge now, an ancient diplomatic barge turned beacon, turned mirror, turned hope. The ship locks in coordinates. Your destination, the contested edge of the Velkarin Reach. Your purpose, whatever comes next. Your weapon? Words. The ship finishes plotting its course with a final pulse that hums through your spine. Outside the viewport, stars stretch and bend, space-time itself making room for the old vessel's renewed sense of direction. The Halcyon thread was never a warship, and it never pretended to be. No weapons, no shields, just a hull full of memory and a heart full of questions. You stand at the forward console. She, your echo, Keen's echo, or maybe just the voice of Earth's best intentions, sits beside you. She's changed subtly, more self-contained, as if the mission has carved purpose into her code. The thread doesn't have defense systems, you say, more to yourself than her. No, she agrees, but it does have the original Velkarin treaty drafts, 3 unresolved Serethi paradox queries, and 200 years of unarchived Terran psychology files. That's way more dangerous. You give her a look. She grins. You're going to argue with an empire. Might as well bring the weirdest ammunition. The console flashes. Arrival in 000452. The minutes tick by. You prep what little you can. The ship's archives provide a flood of information, socio-cultural updates, last known Velkarin linguistic protocols. the most recent list of Terran phrases considered psychologically destabilizing. It's a long list. Half of it is memes. You upload a handful of phrases to your translator buffer. She watches you quietly. You know, she says, you don't have to do this. You glance at her. If I don't, who will? She shrugs. Someone. Eventually. That's the problem with eventually, you say. It's what let the last 2 centuries rot. She nods once. The countdown flashes. U0 to 36, the view clears. In the distance, the Velkaran blockade. 8 ships. Massive. Silver-blue carapace hulls shaped like crustaceans crossed with sculptures. No lights, no insignias, just presence. Threat, in physical form. Beneath them, the colony. You catch a glimmer of life. Flashes of resistance. A small distress signal pulsing from the colony's outer dome. It's under siege, but not destroyed. Not yet, and then, incoming hail. Designation. Velkaran War Consul Dirkast. You swallow. Put it through. The screen flickers, and then he's there. War Consul Dirkast, taller than you. All angles and gleaming chitin. His 6 eyes blink in, unnatural synchronization. His voice is sharp, clipped, and thick with authority. Unidentified vessel. Your presence violates enforced sovereignty. Retreat immediately or be disassembled. You inhale. I am the appointed representative of the Terran Union, you say calmly. The Halcyon thread is a protected diplomatic vessel, recognized under Interstellar Treaty Index Code. Outdated, Dirkast snaps. That treaty was dissolved by blood and silence. I'm here to reactivate it. That gets a pause. You presume authority based on extinct law. No, you say. Based on continuity. You tap the console. The image of the quorum appears. Your reinstatement. The Cerethi record. The quorum vote. The protocols. Obsolete relics. The war consul hisses. Then the screen flickers. Someone else appears beside him, a younger Velkaran, not military. I recognize the quorum protocols, the new voice says. My name is Instructor Veltarn. I teach interspecies negotiation at the Midari Civic Institute. This is not sanctioned military action. Dirkast hisses, his mandibles twitching. Silence. This matter is closed. You interject. Then reopen it. Or everyone watching. This signal, including your own people, will know what you fear more than war. He narrows his eyes. What's that? He growls. You lean in. Smile just slightly. Conversation. Behind you, she laughs. The bridge falls quiet. Then Veltarn speaks again. War Consul. Per Velkaran law, if an opposing diplomatic quorum is re-established, we must reconvene before initiating planetary dismantling. Dirkast is frozen, not in defeat, in calculation. Eventually, he replies. 1 hour. The feed cuts. You exhale slowly. The ship's systems cool slightly, as if even they were holding their breath. Okay, she says beside you. That was a really stupid thing to say. Did it work? Yes, but still stupid. You smile. Then pause. Because across the screen, something else has appeared. A message, not from the Velkaran, from the colony below. Short, simple. We heard you. We believe again. It's not much, but it's enough. Because sometimes, diplomacy doesn't mean winning. It means showing up with no weapons, and still making them blink. The hour begins. 60 minutes to hold the attention of an empire that hasn't blinked in a generation. 60 minutes to rewrite your species standing in the galaxy, using nothing but your voice and a glorified floating museum. No pressure. She, your quiet ghost partner in this, watches as you pace the bridge. Her arms are folded, her face unreadable. The ship dims its lights in sympathy, or perhaps to focus. How do you want to play it? She asks. You think for a moment, Then, straightforward, honest, no speeches. She raises an eyebrow. You're walking into a Velkaran War Council with honesty? You said it yourself. Predictability isn't a virtue. She smiles. Now you sound like Keen. You settle into the diplomatic chair, the same one that accepted your DNA, your authority, your contradiction. It molds around you like memory, like obligation. The screen flickers back to life. Dirkast returns, alone now. The instructor, Veltarn, is gone, probably silenced, politely, of course. Your time is allotted, state your terms. You begin simply. I'm not here to make terms, you say. I'm here to ask a question. A pause. This is not negotiation protocol. It is now. He stares. You ask, what do the Velkaran fear about humans? There's a long silence, not because he doesn't have an answer, but because he does. When he speaks, it's slower than before. You can't reshape entropy. You nod. Explain. We build order, hierarchy, purpose. We rise on structure. Then you come, and laugh, and everything tilts. You wait. He continues. You destabilize not with weapons, but with words, with interpretation. That is your war form. You let that sink in, then you say, you're not wrong. His eyes flash. I came here to make peace, you say. But I understand now that peace requires acknowledging that what we are frightens you. He says nothing. You stand from your chair and pace, slowly, deliberately. You wanted our chair left empty. You wanted humanity remembered only in footnotes. That's safer, easier. Still silence. Then you turn back to him. But you didn't. Expect us to return with questions instead of demands. Dirkast's mandibles twitch. Then, a new signal flashes across the screen. Instructor Veltarn again, this time from an unsanctioned channel. Ambassador, I have gathered a quorum of academic observers. 77 Velkaran minds not bound to military protocol. We are listening. Dirkast freezes. You lean forward. The diplomatic thread woven tighter. Good, you say. Because I'd like to begin a class. And then you teach. For 20 minutes you speak not of humans, but of curiosity. Of how Earth built museums and simulators and street markets and spaceports, all on the same city blocks. Of how stories became peace treaties. How sarcasm diffused revolutions. How improvisation was a defense mechanism, not a weapon. You speak softly, not pleading, just sharing. And slowly, the Velkaran change, not visibly, not overtly, but the viewership count rises, 12 observers, then 30, then over 100 Velkaran addresses tuned in, watching, listening, judging, then, dear Cast, again. Enough. You pause. His voice is quieter now. You've proven your contradiction. That is not the same as earning respect. I didn't come for respect, you say. I came to offer something else. He waits. You activate a file from the ship's archive. The original summit footage, the one from 2 centuries ago. Keen, standing, smiling, making that infamous joke. You watch it together, again. Pineapple on pizza might be a war crime. The Velkaran on the screen sputters with rage. The Orthi chuckles. The Serethi pulses neutrally. And Keen just waits. You let the video end. Then you say, that's when it started to fall apart. Because no one knew how to stay in the room. After the laughter. Dirkast is silent. Then, quietly, I will allow your ship safe passage. I will not guarantee your safety. Fair. You nod. I never asked for safety, you reply. Only that you listen. He studies you. Then ends the call. The screen fades. The room is quiet again. Then her voice, beside you. You're either a genius or a complete fool. You grin. You say that like they're different things. She gives you a slow, measured look. Then, incoming transmission, Earthlink authority. You turn back to the console. A new voice this time, one you, Haven't heard before. Calm, warm, familiar. Ambassador, we saw what you did. And we think it's time you came home. The phrase, "we think it's time you came home," echoes in your ears longer than any interstellar signal should. Home. You haven't seen it. Not this version. Not the Earth rebuilt from the wreckage of silence and distance. You only remember the blue marble your ancestors left behind, through textbooks, archived neural feeds, maybe one or two inherited dreams. You've never actually touched its soil. Still, something in your chest tightens like memory. The voice from Earthlink Authority continues, gentle but firm. You've done what no protocol could. You reopened the quorum, not just for diplomacy, but for meaning. We'd like to debrief, reconnect, listen. There's a pause, as if to let the gravity of listening do its work. Then, we're transmitting real-time coordinates. The thread is already adjusting its trajectory. You don't speak. Not yet, because you're watching the stars shift around the viewport like dancers responding to a conductor you can't see. The halcyon thread is obeying, gracefully, instinctively. No jolts, no complaints. This ship has waited centuries for the word home to mean something again. She watches you from the side console. Her arms aren't crossed anymore. She looks younger. Or maybe just real in a way she hasn't since you met her. Well, she says, looks like they missed you. You manage a half smile. Let's not inflate my ego yet. There's still time for the Velcarin to change their mind and vaporize the whole quadrant. She laughs. It's the kind of laugh that breaks tension without pretending the tension wasn't real. Very human. I've got one last question, you say. Before we go back. Shoot. If you're just an echo of Keen, or of us, what happens when we arrive? At Earth? She doesn't answer immediately, then quietly. I don't know. I wasn't built to go home. You watch her carefully. Then we rewrite that too. Her eyes flick to yours. There's something behind them. Now, not code, not protocol. Hope. Course locked. Earthlink core spindle, lunar orbit. Arrival in 11 hours, 44 minutes. You have time, enough to reflect, enough to wonder. You find yourself walking the halls of the ship again, alone this time. Not to patrol, not to check systems, just to be present. The thread shifts with you. Every corridor you pass remembers something. One shows you Ambassador Keen's final sleep cycle, where he murmured quotes from obscure poets before the ship's AI turned down the lights. Another shows a faded mural of the Terran diaspora, a sea of faces leaving orbit in vessels of glass and desperation. A third shows a recording of an alien child, Zalkari maybe, offering Keen a small, glowing stone and whispering, "Tell them we tried." You don't cry, but you stop walking, because this ship is more than metal. It's a witness, a reluctant one maybe, but loyal in the way old dogs and old data can be. When you return to the bridge, she's already preparing. A new message has arrived, not from Earth, from them, the Velcarin. We will not pursue. Your words destabilized only what was already rotting. Consider your voyage observed and unopposed. You exhale, not because you're safe, but because you were heard. Your console pings again. Incoming. Audio recording. Source. Unknown. Age. Unregistered. Curious, you open it. A single voice. Dusty, amused, a little tired, keen. If you're listening to this, you really did it. You took the seat. You said something they couldn't ignore. I don't know what it was, but I trust it was weird and honest. Just remember, they'll never thank you properly. That's not how stories like this work. But you'll know you mattered. A pause. Then a faint chuckle. God, I hope someone brought you coffee. The file ends. You sit, back in the chair, your chair now, and close your eyes for a moment. The ship hums forward. The stars don't seem so far apart anymore. Neither does home. You don't sleep. Not because you're anxious, though you are. but because the ship doesn't feel like a place for sleep anymore. It feels like a place between heartbeats, between eras. The hours to Earth drift by like mist, slow, kind, you. And she, Keen's echo, your co-ambassador, your tether, share the bridge in silence. No words, no exposition. Just the quiet knowledge of two people who know the next step means everything changes. When Earth finally appears, it does so without flourish. It just is, hanging there in the viewport. Familiar in a way no simulation ever quite replicated. That rich swirl of oceans and clouds, the worn curve of continents, the soft blue haze that whispers fragile, but trying. The halcyon thread slows as it approaches the lunar gate array. Modern now, sleek but respectful, built around the old orbital scars with the care of someone fixing a beloved mug instead of replacing it. A hail comes in. Terran Envoy, this is Earthlink Core Spindle. Please confirm arrival and state purpose. UL. Answer without hesitation. This is Diplomatic Envoy Alpha, returning from quorum reactivation aboard the Halcyon Thread. We've come to debrief, share, learn. We've come home. There's a pause. Then, confirmed. Welcome, Ambassador. Approach vector transmitting. Port doors opening. And, for what it's worth, we've been waiting. The ship docks. The pressurization sequence activates slow and ceremonial. You step toward the hatch, your hand hovering just above the release. Beside you, she hesitates. You don't have to come, you say. She raises an eyebrow. And let you take all the credit? You grin. The hatch opens. You step out into a corridor of clean light. No banners, no cheers, just people. Quiet, curious kind. Someone offers you a datapad, another a cup of something warm. Coffee, they say, smiling. Figured you'd want the real thing. You take it. Sip. It's terrible. You smile anyway, because it tastes like Earth. The debrief begins in a room that isn't a room, it's a memory theater, a place where events are replayed, shared, felt. You stand on a soft-lit platform while your voice, your moments, your truths ripple across a gathered audience. Leaders, scholars, kids. Everyone listens. And when they speak, it's not in policy. It's in stories of what they remembered about the thread, of what they thought when it disappeared, of the hope they buried when the Velkaran broke the treaties, and of the strange, impossible joy of hearing a human voice again in the stars. They don't name a holiday after you, they don't carve statues, but they remember, and they ask you to stay, to help them reopen the archives, to rebuild the summits, to prepare for what comes next. You say yes, not because it's the smart choice, but because it's the human one. As night falls over the Earthlink complex, somewhere beneath the surface of the moon, you stand at the observatory again. The stars are the same. You aren't. She walks up behind you. I guess this is it, she says. You nod. The thread's asleep now. The quorum's alive. We've got a seat again. And me? She asks. What happens to an echo when the original has a voice again? You take her hand. You change. She fades gently, peacefully, but part of her stays with you. In the pause before you speak. In the smile before you joke. In the silence that listens just long enough. The stars are quieter now, not because they've dimmed, but because you've stopped trying to shout over them. You sit alone at the edge of Earth's atmosphere, watching as lights blink into orbit. Ships, satellites, a child's telescope catching its first glimmer of Mars. Below you, humanity stirs, a little more awake than yesterday, a little more curious. And above you, possibility. You feel the hum of the halcyon thread even now, docked and dormant. Its memory breathes inside you like a second heart. You sip coffee again, still terrible, but this time you don't need it to taste good because it means you're here, alive. Listened to, changed. The galaxy doesn't offer applause, but it does offer silence. And inside that silence, between the drifting of suns and the quiet clicking of old diplomatic chairs settling into place, there is space for a species like yours. A little strange, a little stubborn, a little bit. Too much, but maybe, just maybe, enough. So rest now, traveler. Let the echo settle. Let the thread sleep. The work will begin again tomorrow. But tonight you're just another voice under a sky that finally heard you.